Throughout history, people have made amazing accomplishments that define themselves. Now, it's our turn to tell those accomplishments, to tell his story, her story, their story, and even your story. With Mike Wexler.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Your Story. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube and you're seeing our faces, that'd be great. Maybe while you're doing that, you can hit subscribe and you can also hit that comment button, drop some mics in the chat. But if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you can listen to your podcast, I appreciate that as well. Maybe hit that subscribe button. Maybe follow my guest at this time. Okay, so this has been a long time coming to the Your Story podcast. This individual I have gotten to see many times over at Millenium Pro Wrestling, whether that is Black Friday, which was my first event ever, when she faced off against Johnnie Robbie, or she's just, being a part of the Void and really just killing it over there. But not only that, such a sweetheart, such a down-to-earth person, which I got to meet over at that Black Friday show. And really passionate person, and really fun-loving person as well. So without further ado, I'm going to say the name because it feels like a long introduction. So the one, the only, Aunt Hydie, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be finally on with you. I've seen some of the episodes. I've seen the ones you did, like with Johnnie Robbie with Helmet Rose Crown. And I'm like, oh, I still want to get on that.
No, it's awesome. I mean, I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule. You mentioned those names. I mean, Johnnie Robbie, Helmet Rose Crown, people that have been in MPW. I really feel like that California right now is pretty spoiled with its professional wrestling.
Oh my, there's so much amazing talent here. I don't doubt the East Coast has its fair share, but from what I've seen here in SoCal, NorCal, and CenCal, I just love working there.
Oh yeah, I mean, we had mentioned earlier before we started about the Millenium Pro Wrestling and everybody over there. Some phenomenal names. I mean, we had, again, back to Johnnie Robbie is one of them. Mylo is another good one. I also feel like too that MPW is really showcasing women's wrestling and really something that SoCal wrestling really needs right now.
Yeah, it's basically our division was pretty small initially because it was me training when I first started training there, and Sage, and as Millenium Pro Wrestling, or at least the iteration that I was a part of, grew and grew. We were bringing on more female talent. Had a lovely match with Ruby Reyes. We brought on let's see, I believe her name was I'm completely blanking at the moment. I apologize. But yeah, as we grew and grew, we brought in Mylo, as you said, her with Johnnie Robbie and Barbie Boys, an amazing tag team.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of great talent over there. One of the things I do want to mention first is probably the most typical podcast question. Like if you go to any wrestling podcast, any podcast in general, they're going to ask you the same thing. But for me, I always say it in a different kind of term. So that way you're more relaxed, more like, okay. So shout out to the Wrestling Classic over on Instagram for this exclusive question. But what was your earliest memories of wrestling?
My earliest memories of wrestling, it's actually pretty silly. It's how I got introduced to wrestling was an episode of Baywatch.
Oh, wow.
The Bash at the Beach episode, the one where Hulk Hogan is picking up the styrofoam or was like plastic. You could see it like bobbing in the water when before Hulk Hogan gets to it, and he just like lifts it like it's this huge Hulkurian strength, and I just bought into it.
Oh no, that's a good episode to get on. I mean, like Baywatch too. I mean, like I just remember watching Baywatch, and then of course you had the David Hasselhoffs and the typical crew. But like, man, back in those days, those shows were pretty good.
Oh yeah. They also got really wacky. Have you heard of Baywatch Nights?
No, I have not.
Basically, David Hasselhoff, and I'm forgetting the other person that my memory is not the best. It's sort of like this detective spin-off of Baywatch, and a lot of it involves the supernatural and some sort of aquatic-based demonic spirit going on, and it's just beautiful. I can
No,
tell
I
off the
remember.
rails it goes.
Oh yeah, like it's crazy. Like that show. I remember watching it when I was growing up. Sadly, I wasn't born during those times, so I can't
Mhm.
speak on that. But regardless, it was awesome to see stuff like that. One of the most memorable things when you talk about Baywatch or something that's very similar is, of course, WCW Bash at the Beach.
Mhm.
I remember that. Oh my gosh, I don't remember if it was a commercial promoting that or if it was just a small little skit. It involved Sting. It's involved British Bulldog,
Mhm.
Vader as the bad guy. And then it was so cool just seeing that, especially at a young age, being a Gen Z. Sorry for all those people that are accurate out there. But it was awesome to see that.
Oh yeah, it was very awesome. But yeah, it was. Oh, now I remember what I was going to say. Basically, the with the I still remember that damn rock. Uh, but yeah, but having Vader as the bad guy with Rick, I believe Ric Flair was in that episode because they were trying to. It was like a fundraiser to buy off that like a community center that part of the beach. I wasn't
Mhm.
paying too much attention to it. I just saw like these real life superheroes, and I'm like, that looks amazing. I must learn more about this.
Oh yeah.
Though I didn't really have as much access to wrestling as some of my peers had. I would like occasionally watch matches that family friends would kind of show me. Like I believe there's a couple SummerSlam matches with Triple H. I think there's one where he was against Stone Cold.
Mhm.
But but it was very interesting. Now, unfortunately, I kind of had to pretend that I didn't really like wrestling because or no, it was more that I kind of would pretend I didn't like it because the I when it came to the women's matches, the it was nobody showed me anything of like China, Lita, Victoria, or Daphne. It was just the bra and panties matches.
Mm.
So I still loved wrestling, but it's kind of like when it came to wanting to be a wrestler, it was kind of sort of like I'm just gonna here. But when I was in college, that old passion came back when a friend showed me not only the work of those amazing women, but also of the Kane Undertaker storyline
Mhm.
of a lot of mankind stuff. There's more recently or recently of the time like the Bray Wyatt and the Fiend stuff,
Mhm.
and I was here it is, and I was house sitting
Mhm.
for my dad because a relative had passed,
Mhm.
and I bought a bunch of wrestling DVDs because that old passion came back,
Right.
and there was a particular one that I got, which was the Twisted Disturbed Life of Kane,
Yes.
and yeah, maskless serial killer Kane it will always hold a place in my heart
Uh-huh.
because the DVDs, not only the matches there, but the he has like these wraparound segments where he just in his maskless form will kind of reminisce about what went on or how he felt about these matches, and he just like drank it in. It was just so deliciously evil that it just kind of awoken something in me, and I wanted to be a wrestler from that.
hmm Man, that's a great inspiration. I mean, I remember the hypes
Mhm.
towards that movie. Like it was just so devious, so evil. Like you would never think Kane would be taking people's eyes out and putting them in jars. Like
Oh, see no evil.
yeah, like I don't still gives me chills to this day.
Oh
Oh man.
yeah, it was fun to watch, which is kind of weird considering eyes are like a huge motif with me. Oh,
Mhm.
there we go.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely when it comes to Aunt Heidi, the presence that you give whenever you enter an arena, whether that's for Millennium Pro Wrestling, whether that's for Santino Brothers, or even Compton Mania.
Mhm.
One of the things I do want to mention as well
Mhm.
is the fact that your presence is so, so great and so out there and so intimidating, even in a sense, because like I mentioned before, I did get to see you at Black Friday,
Mhm.
and just like the whenever you enter a room it feels like that it's truly like awe-inspiring. You have people that have their jaws dropped to the floor and are like, what is she gonna do? Like what is her next move? So like what was the inspiration to really debuting in wrestling with this current persona that you have?
A couple things. Again, I'm going to go on another rambling story. So buckle up, kiddies at home, because Auntie's going to tell you a lovely tale. Okay, so because speaking of David Hasselhoff, did you folks know that he did a musical?
Oh, no, I did not.
He did a few. He did producers, but he also did the Jekyll and Hyde musical, which is a personal favorite of mine. And I mean, I prefer like different performers to do the dual role, like Robert Cuccioli or Rob Evan. But David Hasselhoff was his version was the one that was put on DVD, and that's what I got my hands on. And that it became like a guilty pleasure of mine, and I wanted to basically do that role so badly. Unfortunately, there were no cross role type of theater promotions going on. I had no idea how to get into theater. So it's like, how am I going to play this part? and then I tried D&D to at least make a D&D-esque character with that. That kind of worked, not so much. And I was starting to get more into, and this was back and around the time I was getting back into wrestling. There we go. And one of my friends from high school, Jay Stone, who was a ref, I found out he was a ref, and I had my brother like hit him up and say like, "Oh, hey, my sister wants to do wrestling. Can you help her out?" And he brought up Santino's. They're at the time I was working in animation, so my schedule didn't quite work with their training schedule. So he brought up Millenium Pro Wrestling, which better fit my schedule. And I went there back when they were in Moore Park, and I started training there with Seth Skyfire. And when I was bringing up when we were talking about characters, I had this character like pre-planned, like Heidi at the time. There was no Auntie there. It was just basically female Hyde, just a mad woman, and allowed me to cross dress, essentially. Like the attire that I wear, even the attire I wear currently, you didn't see Victorian women wear that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, what they didn't quite. They were kind of like, oh yeah, we might consider it. And then I demonstrated one of my loud cackles, and they're like, okay, yeah, you're go with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's awesome that you got that passion, as you mentioned earlier, like that drive and love for professional wrestling, and you're really showcasing that now every time you step in the ring. So I think that's awesome when you get to showcase that passion.
Yeah, I love the fact that people are getting that reaction, because I wanted to kind of give that same type of feeling that I felt when I saw those Taker and Kane matches and the Fiend matches. And what makes it even more special hearing that from you is that for like the early part of my career, I was kind of struggling with that. Like it didn't quite feel like I was embodying that monster. That was like a major criticism I received a few times. And after a while, I think it's because I was struggling with how Heidi would fit into the modern wrestling scene. And I believe it wasn't until I could be wrong. That has been known to happen. It wasn't until the Santino's online courses, which happened during the pandemic. Apologies if that might interfere with any sponsors or anything.
No, you're good. You're good. There's no sponsors here yet. We're almost there. Not yet, though.
What's the correct response? Help?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. So there's but yeah, they're online courses for during the pandemic, and we were because we couldn't do any in-ring stuff, we were focusing on psychology and character, and we did these assignments where we broke down our character. One of the students gave like 100 questions of your character. It was meant for like tabletop role-playing games, but it also works with wrestling. It's very much it's like a very high art LARPing. Wait, that sounds terrible.
No, 100 questions of your character. Like, I never really thought of it like that because like a lot of these, people that develop characters
Mhm.
and really showcase themselves as that character or even just themselves just amped up a little bit, as one Ethan Page said one day.
Mhm.
It's really cool to really kind of think of that in that perspective. Like, I don't know what the questions were, but I assume it's kind of like, how does it react with the crowd? How do you
Mhm.
interact with the crowd?
Mhm.
Or something of like, how do you, if you turn heel, is your character different? Is your character
Mhm.
the same? Like, those type of questions.
Yes. And one of the questions that also helps with character that I learned when I was learning storyboarding in
Mhm.
college was what does your character eat for breakfast?
Mm.
And it seems like a very dumb question, but knowing like even the most banal minute details that no one will ever find out unless you wrote a biography
Mhm.
actually helps because it gives you like that little bit of flavorful texture.
Mm.
Like someone like Heidi would probably try to would probably have something like steak for breakfast,
Mm. Okay.
just because she wants to pretend that she's high society. Or if like or the current version of her, which is Void Heidi,
Mhm.
she would just try to find whoever she's feuding with and just feast on their dreams.
Yeah, I mean, steaks would be a great breakfast. Don't get me wrong, I have cereal for breakfast every morning, but like that would be great.
Yeah,
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 so another thing that I do want to mention really quick, I'm so
mhm.
sorry to cut you off, but
No, we're going.
the one thing, and people at home will probably witness this,
Mhm.
is the phenomenal drawings in the background when you had the hat where it says "I am real," and of
Okay.
course the just you had mentioned about animation and stuff like that. So where did
Mhm.
that kind of love for animation come from?
Oh, I grew up watching various animation, and I uh basically, and I've mentioned this in the Wrestle Tales documentary bit,
Mm,
but I grew up on the autism spectrum,
mm,
and I was never properly diagnosed until much later in life. So everything was just kind of confusing, and one of the things that helped was cartoons.
mm,
And I kind of and drawing, especially also making notes, helped with communicating with and contextualizing a lot of things. And let's see, and eventually I decided to kind of get into animation, especially since in my weird brain type of way, it was like giving life in a
mm.
sense, and you're just putting it on a small screen, which now that I think about it ties into some of Heidi's origin. But yeah, I'm actually trying to make like a little story. Oh, there's the camera.
Oh wow.
I just got this iPad Air thingy, so I'm trying to get the hang of where this camera is.
Mhm,
But yeah, the this is not the final art. I'm gonna update this eventually. I have
mhm,
a few comics that I'm planning on releasing. Uh, but yeah, anyway, got gone to college. Got a couple internships at Moon Scoop, which they're now known as Splash Entertainment, and I worked on the show Lala Loopsy. And
wow.
yeah, and I did storyboard revisions for them, which basically, for anyone who doesn't know, La Loopsy is a show about these sentient ragdolls. They go on little adventures with their pets, and it's so cutesy. And the it's a you wouldn't expect like Heidi to have like some sort of like little seed from that, but the in some Heidi drawings where she has like the negative eyes of the black with the white dot on the in the middle to show where she's looking,
Mhm.
that came from those storyboards
Wow.
because the characters in La Loopsy have the button eyes, and we
Mhm.
didn't want to keep drawing that. We use that as a cheat.
Mm. Wow, Lala Loopsy, like
Mm-hmm.
that's a name. Well, for one, I haven't heard that name in a while, so
Mm-hmm.
whew, nostalgia. Second of all, no, it's awesome because I grew up on stuff like that, watching Lala Loopsy, and really just kind of like now the kid. You brought the kid in me again, so thank you for that. Oh man! So aside from cartoon nostalgia, which now you know about that,
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting that you talk about just kind of the beginnings of like some of the challenges that you had to face early in life. That kind of really relates to me as well because I
Mm-hmm.
grew up with a little bit of I had extra fluid in my head when I was little, so that I had to get a shunt, and then the shunt wasn't working, so then they had to take it out. So there was a little bit in there. So then, fast forward about, oh my gosh, I got diagnosed when I was like, well, not diagnosed, but like it was I don't know the word, but basically I was identified with a disability at I want to say it was middle school, 8th grade, I think, or 9th grade. No, take that back. Horrible memory. That's what's a part of 10th grade. But no, it was basically visual processing. I really can't really process new information like that. So it takes me time to really like repeat it until it's like, man, I'm done with this, man. Like, can I just go on with graduating high school and graduating college and all that? But no, I really relate to you when it comes to that. So I mean, we appreciate you're killing it, keeping going, and really just pushing forward. So we appreciate that.
Yes, thank you very much. But yeah, I do also relate to having things repeated, because that's sort of like my early wrestling career was a little rough. Like I mentioned before, I wasn't quite getting certain things, and thankfully, after I did the Rye seminar, where I got some pretty good criticism on character. But yeah, actually, I also mentioned the SoCal and Censor articles that basically called out some of my early stuff, because it was pretty rough.
Right.
And I appreciate those articles, because they kind of gave me that kick in the pants needed to get better. And when I kind of accepted the fact that I was on the spectrum, I stopped masking, which is essentially you're pretending to be normal. And it's good to kind of camouflage yourself, but it's also very taxing.
Yeah, I mean,
go
ahead. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Yeah, it's very taxing, and I have a feeling that probably what interfered with me learning certain things in wrestling, because I was so focused on like, please try to be normal human. And but I stopped masking. I talked with Peter Avalon and Ray Rosas and Danny Devine and Brendan Devine, and they've accommodated my basically my learning style, and they've been a phenomenal help with me getting better. Also, Joey Chaos, definitely during the Santino's online courses, the best the best advice he gave me when it came to character was like emoting with the eyes.
Yep.
That's where the believability is. And unfortunately, because of this spectrum thing, a lot of times I will have a flat affect. So I will forget unless I'm like actively thinking about it. But the more I just practice it, the more it became more natural. And I can just have like a lovely conversation as Heidi. And I could probably do the entire podcast like this, though it'd be a little too cheesy.
Oh man, no, I definitely relate to that. I mean, even as a broadcaster myself and just a regular guy, I mean, I could definitely relate to that, because like I have to have stuff like over and over again. And even there's points, even in my job, which currently is as a public addresser for the Cal State San Bernardino athletics program. So shout out to you guys as well. But like there'll be times where I'll like just forget on the spot. It's something that's like, am I trying to do that? No, because I'm trying to keep everything in place. But it like, even if it's something simple like, oh, I forgot to mention this guy's name, or the head athletic trainer, and like I mispronounced his name. It's not Pharrell, like the singer. It's Farrell. It's like Will Ferrell. Like it just those little things where I understand those mistakes. I'm trying to correct them, but there'll still be moments where I make mistakes.
Yeah, most people tend to, or at least are okay with the fact that I am not the best with names. Also, I have like a couple of I mentioned before, bullet points that helps me keep me on track, because I will tend to ramble. Also, there's like so many details through my 7 to 8 year career that having it written down definitely is helpful. But yeah, I do appreciate. Sorry.
No, you're good. No, I appreciate you being on. One of the things too. So you mentioned him, of course. We talk about Ray Rosas. We talk about Peter Avalon and Danny Devine and Brendan Devine, the brothers Devine. What was it like really learning under their like knowledge and getting so much insight from really in my opinion, and probably you may agree as well, like really the best minds in professional wrestling.
Oh my God. It was daunting at first initially because I was thinking, how am I going to match that? But the important thing that Ray and Peter and actually, the Diamond Brothers also bring up is just knowing your basics.
Mm.
And but yeah, and let's see, but yeah, knowing your basics. Ray had almost every class we just break down the moves, break down our footing, and we basically just try to refine those little touches. Because one thing I've definitely learned as I've been maturing as Heidi is I don't need to do too much. Like what I do as a character is can get me far. If I can play to my body type, play to the character, then I can make so little mean a lot. That's And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm proud of the Delilah Doom match that I had.
Yeah, I mean that was definitely one of the coolest matches, especially for Santino Brothers. Like,
oh yeah,
you've been in the room, in the ring. I don't know where I got room from. That's the mind thinking right there. With some of the best out there, especially in women's wrestling.
Oh yes, Delilah Doom is amazing. I hope to have another match with her again. I hope to have another proper match with Ruby Reyes, Sage Sin. Let's see who else. Oh, sorry, the brain is going out again. Savannah Stone is another one I want to have a cool match with. Let's see who's active. Oh, Heather Monroe. She seems like a really cool person to have a match with.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot of names out there. Hopefully we will see that in the near future. One of the things too, because we had mentioned about it earlier, and I kind of want to go in detail of it, is the Santino Brothers online course. I spoke with Hellman Rose Crown, who was a part of that class, and he said that because of that course, it really helped him thrive in his career, and I feel like that's a lot with the students that were a part of that online class. As someone that took online class at the very beginning of the pandemic, where it was like everything had stopped and everything was like, okay, we're doing Zoom, cool. What was that experience like for you? Because for a lot of people, it was very hard to adjust to that virtual learning.
That wasn't too much of a stretch for me because I'm not much of a, or at least I don't go out that often anyway. So that it was pretty nice to have these online courses, and as I mentioned before, because we didn't do the in-ring stuff, we were focused on psychology. So we actually had a couple matches that we just broke down in real time, and I believe like Coach Chaos brought up a couple Buddy Rogers matches, and he's like, okay, here's where the this step is, here's where the heat is, here's where this thing, and I'm like looking, I'm like, oh my God, it makes sense now.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, you talk about Buddy Rogers. I mean, there's definitely a lot of good matches out there that you could really break down. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like one of the matches that you could really break down and, really have a fun time watching. I'm biased because I'm a Johnny Gargano fan, so shout out to you, Johnny, out there. Hopefully you're watching. But Johnny Gargano versus Andrade, El Idolo, Cien Almas, whatever you want to call him, take over Philadelphia. That is the greatest match. I feel like in our modern time, because it was just nothing but storytelling. And storytelling is really important in terms of professional wrestling.
Oh my God, it is amazing. Storytelling can make even the most ridiculous of premises seem just engaging. Like you have you have Kane and Undertaker. You have a lich cowboy with his brother being a masked demon, but they had that emotional core, that emotional storytelling of a man who's being haunted by the sins of his past. And I think that's also kind of what really made the J2 storyline really work out, is that I was worried that it wouldn't go over well because you're essentially doing like because I'm basically doing I'm being like Papa Shango. I'm doing the hypnotism thing, capturing somebody, turning them evil, and I'm just parading them around like my own personal puppet.
Mm-hmm.
And turns out it worked out. And one of the reasons it really worked out was because we called out just the basic of what Hydie is doing is pretty messed up. She's taking somebody who is essentially someone, their own person, and also somebody's mentor, their friend, somebody who's considered to be a brother to people. And
Mm-hmm.
she just took away their agency and is just parading them around as sort of a dark parody of themselves, just for her own amusement. And when we kind of had that emotion put in there, that agency of like, yeah, that's a person that we have to get them back. That probably didn't sound that right, but screw it, I'm going with it.
Yep.
Yeah, especially when Danny Devine did his promo, when Brendan Devine had the hardcore feud. Oh wait, no, it was King of Extreme, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And when Rebel Storm came in and really brought that emotion, that connectivity of like, I know J2, this is not him. What the hell? I gotta get him back.
Right.
That's
yeah.
And the more we just kept playing with that, the better it just felt, and I felt more inspired to do a whole bunch of artwork on it, like with the like the void stuff, like making it more aquatic based. The the void is an interesting evolution. But yeah, doing the comics, that's where that came from. The idea of like Hydie would taunt Rebel Storm by being like, "Oh, you want to know how J2 got indoctrinated? Here, I'm going to detail it for you right here."
Right. Yeah, those are some interesting origins of the Void. I do want to touch a little bit more about the Void because you guys have, in my opinion, of course, the coolest members of the Void. I mean, you talk about Richie, you talk about Hellman Rosecrown, like you even talk about just like all the people that you've had thus far. You see that chemistry too, and I feel like when it comes to factions, trios, tag teams, I mean, the chemistry really has to be there, and you really see it with the Void. So what can you say has been a part of that chemistry? Like what makes that chemistry so great?
Don't forget Artorias, Heidi's right-hand man, her
right,
personal dragon.
Right.
But yeah, it's I think it's because we saw the Void as this storytelling opportunity for people. It's basically it's completely because of how bonkers it is. It's essentially you get to basically make your own dark interpretation of just to, even at least it basically if you, here's the better way of saying it. There you go. Brain just reset it. But yeah, you can just have like the worst aspects of yourself brought to the forefront, even if you're like normally a face or like or even just somebody who's usually a bright type of person. But you can just go buck wild with it, and we collaborated with each other about aspects they wanted to do. Like with Richie Coy, we went with a flower motif. Like Hydie would always refer to them as like her little carnation, and Richie basically used their poetry and decided to, and with Hellman basically wanted to do like a Planet of the Apes thing where they're kind of like they're kind of doing the whole like presenting the paw to Hydie and being and her touching it as sort of like what's the word? Oh, permission to act. And certain things stayed, certain things got tossed, but it was like a good way to kind of play around with it, see what stuck, see what didn't work, and just building upon all of that. And not to mention having something physical that you can have someone drink to turn them evil or turn them void-ish is also something that's a good visual indicator to the crowd.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't know if I would want to divulge into that into that liquid. So
Not on camera.
oh no. Oh no. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
there are some secrets of the void that I will that will be given in piecemeal, like, but will never. I'll like to my grave. I won't say this is exactly what the void is.
I mean, yeah, I mean, definitely the void is very scary. Very, very scary.
Plus, if I like explained everything, it would just kind of lose its luster.
I mean, hey, I mean, it is what it is, but we appreciate the void and we can't see what they do next. But Hydie, before we go, I do want to say thank you so much for being a part of this episode of Your Story, getting to talk, sit back, relax, and really having this great conversation. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you very much, Mike. It was a pleasure to be on, and I hope to do it again, or at least just tell stories. If I can't wait to show more of the comics that I'm planning on doing.
So my final question, just before, is probably, the question I ask most about these podcasts. And you talked about your story, you talked about your beginnings, and you're working with all these phenomenal people and overcoming challenges. The question I have for you is, are you, Aunt Hydie, proud of the story that you've told thus far in your career?
I would say yes. It's once I relaxed and I just allowed myself to basically just go wild with Hydie. Hydie started off as just a mad woman, and as I mentioned before, but the more places and promotions wanted her to have like powers and or have like these Undertaker-ish type of qualities, the more powerful she got, until she's just this nightmare of a creature that's barely contained in flesh. And it's beautiful. It's a way that I get to throw around some creativity. I won't say what Hydie is. Like, it's there actually is, I know what she is, but I'm not going to say it because A, she doesn't know, and B, it's just like giving away certain things about like how certain things are done. It's probably going to be kind of a letdown if I say what it is.
Oh, well, we have a good mystery to end the podcast, but Hydie, I do appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining on. If you guys want to follow Aunt Hydie and what's the word? I'm not bask. Well, yeah, sure. Bask in her glory, of course. You can follow her on Instagram at Aunt Hydie. And I believe on Twitter, it's the same thing.
Yes, it's Auntie Hydie. There's an underscore between the two. Yes.
Okay, I am now seeing it. So I was gonna say Aunt first, but at Auntie_Hydie, to make sure you guys go follow her journey. And really just, she's really going up in this wrestling business, and you better see her, because 2022 is definitely going to be her year. But thank you so much. I don't know why all of a sudden I lost my breath, but thank you guys so much. If you guys want to listen once again on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to Apple Podcasts or this podcast, I'm so sorry, editor. Appreciate it if you're going to be cutting a lot of this out. But thank you guys so much. Hit subscribe, follow Hydie. She's a legend. We already know. I'm pointing in the right direction, thankfully. And we will see you guys hopefully in the next episode of Your Story.